Okay, now we're going to talk about adding and subtracting unlike fractions. So when adding or subtracting two fractions that do not have the same denominator, first we have to find our common denominator by finding the least common denominator of the two denominators, which we just did that in our last lesson, so we should be really good at that by now. After we do that, we're going to convert each fraction to an equivalent fraction whose denominator is that common denominator, okay? Once we rewrite the two fractions so that they have the common denominator, we're going to add or subtract, following the procedure for working with the fractions that have the same denominator. Okay, so here are our steps. First, we're going to find the least common denominator of the fractions. Like I said, we should be really good at that by now. Then we're going to rewrite each fraction as an equivalent fraction whose denominator is the least common denominator of the original denominators. Okay, so let's take a pause and talk about this. It's worded kind of tricky and I want everybody to understand what we do here. So, we have the original problem that they gave us, right? And we use our tools that we learned last time to find our least common denominator. But we have to, sorry, my phone's on. Shame on me. There, I just corrected that. We have to rewrite it so that it has the same, the least common denominator. So let's look at the one that we have here. We have 5/8 plus 7/10, right? Well, we know that when we look at both of these and we look at 8 and 10, that our least common denominator is 4. But we want, not 4, it's 40. So it's 40. And we want to make both of these have a common denominator of 40. We can't just write that down though, right? We have to make it happen mathematically. So we have to think to ourselves, what do we multiply 8 by to get 40? Well, that answers 5, right? So we have to multiply 8 by 5. But we can't just play favorites and only multiply the 8 by the 5. We also have to do the same thing to our numerator, right? Because we can't play favorites in math, just like we can't play favorites with our kids or anything like that. So what we do to the bottom, we must do to the top. So then we have to step over here to this fraction. And we have to ask ourselves, what do we multiply 10 by to get 40? Well, that's 4. Again, we can't do to the denominator and not do to the numerator, so we have to multiply the top by 4. Okay, now let me tell you why this is legal. This is a form of 1. So anything divided by itself is always 1, right? So like 3 divided by 3 equals 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1. If you don't believe me, please put it in your calculator and test me, okay? Like 772 divided by 772 is 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. And that's why we could do this to this any equation, and it doesn't change. Sorry, somebody came to my door and I was trying to read lips. It doesn't change the equation in any way, right? Because it's just 1. So when we do this, then we're going to have 25 over 40. 7 times 4 is 28 over 40. And then when we figure that up, it's going to be 53 over 40, right? So we have to do that. That's what that means, okay? That's what this step means right here. Just so that that's clear. I felt like it was kind of worded strange. Alright, then we're going to add or subtract the numerators, placing the result over the common denominator, which we just did there. Then simplify to the lowest term. So if this was anything that could simplify, we would go ahead and do that, okay? Alright, hopefully you understand what I just said. Sorry for the interruption, my bad. Alright, so here we're going to do the same thing again, right? We have 11 over 24 plus 5 over 8. So our denominators are 24 and 8. Well, we know 24 is like 4 times 6, right? Well, we could take that even lower, so let's do. That would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 3, right? And 8, well, we all know that's just 3 2's. Oop, wrong pen. Sorry. So we have these 3 that line up. So we only write them once. So 2 times 2 times 2 times 3, well, that gives us 24. So he's our common denominator. So the first one we don't even have to change, right? We could just write him here, but 5/8 we have to change. So we're going to have to multiply the bottom and the top by 3. So 5 times 3 is 15, 8 times 3 is 24. Then we can just simply add, which gives us 26 over 24. But they're both divisible by 2, so when we divide by 2, that's going to give us a 13. That's going to give us a 12, so that's how we got 13 over 12, okay? Same thing over here. Every single time, this one's pretty simple. You just multiply the 2 together, right? But when you get to the bigger numbers later on, you go ahead and just, however your favorite way is, if you list out the multiples, or if you do the prime factor form, do that and find your common denominator, okay? All right. Well, you guys have the best day.